I figure if you've already heard Pastor Daniel speak, then you know a lot about him because he shares a lot of his heart. He shares great stories. And so you guys probably don't know a lot about me because other than what you've heard from him, because he does talk very nicely about me, and I do appreciate that. But you haven't heard from me and my story. Usually I'm back there with the kids and hanging out and playing with the babies and doing all the fun things. But today I want you to trust me. I want you to know me. I want you to just learn a little bit about me. So I'm going to tell you a few things about myself just so we're on the same page. So I'm the youngest of 5, absolute spoiled kid. That's me. I was a pastor's kid, actually pastor's kid, pastor's grandkid on both sides, and I had a great grandparent that was a pastor too. So this was always going to happen, I think. I spent the 90s. I spent my childhood, those formative years. I grew up, spent those years in Minnesota. And people I only hear it when I say that one word, but that is where I spent my childhood. And it was a really, really good childhood. I really liked it. No notes, perfect 10 out of 10. I was homeschooled, so that might explain. If you ever need an explanation, just remember I was homeschooled. So it was great. Like I'd wake up in the morning, mom cooked breakfast, we would school at home, and then I'd go out and I'd climb trees and play and get into general shenanigans, and it was a good time. And one of the things that I loved to do when I was a kid, after all the playing was done, after all the chores were done, I'd have to ask my mom, can I turn on the TV? There was one. It was one TV. Maybe eventually we got 2 when we really went up in the world. But that was our screen. It was a TV. We had to ask mom. And there were commercials, and you had to get the right time or else you're going to miss your show. I think that's my walking to school barefoot uphill both ways in the snow is commercials and having to wait till my actual program went on, because otherwise you have to wait for the rerun. And it was a hard life. It was a hard childhood. And sometimes TV let me down by, me missing the shows that were regularly scheduled. But one thing that never let me down is this beautiful thing right here. If you're young, you're not going to know what this is. These babies, these VHS tapes. Yes, the OGs. I showed this to my 11-year-old today, and I was like, do you know what this is? And he goes, I think that's a CD. I was like, try again, baby. He goes, it's a cassette tape. And I was like, close enough. And I'm not, don't correct him. I'm going to let him call it a cassette tape because it's funny. But it's a VHS, and I would stick it in the VCR, and I'd be mad at past Ashley or whatever sibling didn't rewind it last time, because you got to rewind them, and that's uphill both ways. It's sad. But my favorite thing to do, of all the movies I had, I'm going to just be honest with you guys, I'm a Disney kid. And that 90s classic animated Disney, it shaped me. It molded me. It made me who I am today. A lot of things did, but I can't discount Disney. I mean, a lot of fundamental things about my personality are because of those cartoons like Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and Little Mermaid, Lion King, all those beautiful 90s ones. I got to say, my love for music can in many ways be traced back to those musical numbers in Disney. I am ridiculously theatrical and dramatic, and I love storytelling and fake accents and comedy and, another one, the desire to have all my problems be solved by a fairy godmother. That was the dream. I had to work through that one because it turns out that's not a real life thing. And I was like, but if I'm a princess, I should have one. And so there was a lot of reality that I had to get through. But you know what movie really got me? Was Aladdin. Aladdin was a good one. Who here has seen Aladdin, the 90s cartoon? Okay, a lot of you, but there are some people who have not seen it. And as I was preparing for this yesterday, and I was sitting and talking with my 20-something nephew, and I was saying, I'm just going into this imagining that everybody's seen it and knows the plot as well as I do. And what if people haven't seen it? And he's like, I haven't seen it. So I'm calling his mother today, and we're going to talk it out, and we're going to get through this, and I'm going to bring some correction there because we got to raise him right. So we're going to just go back and do some things. We're going to show him Aladdin. But so for any of you who haven't seen it, or if you're an adult unlike me and don't remember every detail, I'm going to just go through it and tell you a little bit about it. It's a story of a young man named Aladdin who's living in the streets of a city named Agrabah. He is poor. He lives in an abandoned building with his sidekick and his best friend, a little monkey named Abu. Yeah, we know. Okay, good. You guys are besties. So Aladdin has nothing to his name, and he describes his plight in song, as Disney characters do. Gotta eat to live, gotta steal to eat. Tell you all about it when I got the time. See, I need life to have musical numbers, guys. Like, can you just imagine, like, if you're about to get into an argument or somebody's not understanding you, imagine you just like stand there for a second and then you hear that note like, and then everybody knows, the light goes on you, and everybody knows to pay attention because I'm about to sing my feelings. I wish, right? I wish. In some ways, life should be a little more Disney-ish, but I digress. So, Aladdin finds himself one day out of nowhere. He is completely surprised. He finds himself face to face with the beautiful Princess Jasmine, and they spend some time together, and he falls head over heels in love with her. But then he finds out she is in fact the princess, and no one can marry the princess but a prince. So it's this terrible, sad thing. He's not allowed to marry her. He's devastated because after spending one entire afternoon with her, of course he's madly in love with her, because Disney. So eventually, through a series of events, Aladdin comes into possession of a very special item. It is a magic lamp. That's right, Titus. It's the magic lamp. I'm going to put this away. This guy's staying out. He's important. So he comes into possession of our magic lamp. And it is magical because if you rub it, a genie comes out and will grant you 3 wishes. And there, of course, are a few rules that you have to follow. So obviously, rule number 1, you can't wish for more wishes. The genie tells him, I can't kill anyone, I can't raise anyone from the dead, and I can't make anyone fall in love with you. I think it's important to point out right now, I did not have to look up any of this. I didn't have to rewatch the movie. I didn't have to Google any of this. I just remember it. I don't know how long it's been. It's been years, but it's in there. Disney's in my mind. So those are the rules. And Aladdin's not worried about, I don't need to make her fall in love with me. We spent an afternoon together. We sang. So obviously we're in love. But we got to fix this prince problem. So he uses his first wish and says, can you make me a prince? So here we are. He wants to become a prince. Now, a lot of things happen. I'm not going to tell you all the fun stuff. It's very cool. But there is also an evil person at play. His name is Jafar. I love Disney villains too. Disney knows how to do a villain. But Jafar is selfish and evil, and he eventually gets the lamp and uses his wishes for something awful and horrible, and he makes all these mistakes. But one thing that like we have to acknowledge, like finding a magic lamp and becoming the proud new owner of a real life genie, like that's a dream. Like that is the dream, right? So when I watched when I was a kid and I was watching the movie, I was watching Aladdin like fumble through all his wishes, and he would hem and haw, and he wasn't sure, and he just like used his wishes like that. And they would change the trajectory of his life. But when I was watching the movie, I was not a kid watching a Disney movie. I was analyzing, and I was preparing, and I was taking notes, and I was ready, figuring out all the ways that he went wrong, so that if I ever found one of these bad boys, I would be able to do a better job than Aladdin, and I would find out the best way to maximize my wishes, right? So I was sitting there saying, like, obviously the evil Jafar, he squandered his wishes by being completely evil, and he was hasty, and he was blind to reality, and he was easily tricked. But also, like, Aladdin definitely could have done better. So there's no, genie, I wish for you to make me a prince. No. That's not good enough. See, for me, I would have to use like the world's longest run-on sentence. And I'm a grammar girly. I'm all about the grammar, but not with my wishes. So like I was thinking about like, okay, if I had a wish, it wouldn't be look, make me a princess. It would be, I wish to be a princess of a peaceful and prosperous land with a good climate, no hurricanes, maybe in the mid-70s, 80, 85 if I want to go to the beach, lush vegetation, I want to be adored by my subjects, and so forth and so on. And I don't know if that would be allowed, but that's the way. And also, like, don't wish for $1 million, guys. That's not the way. You wish for a debit card, right? Debit cards accepted everywhere, all currencies, any country, no matter what, and it always is loaded with the right amount of money for whatever you're gonna. I'm just saying, I put a lot of thought into my wishes. Yes, we can maximize our wishes, people. So, I think that need, that desire to be set free from all your troubles by magic, that's not exclusive to my generation, because I watched my kids do the same thing. One of my boys, my 10-year-old, he's always talking about the magical things that might happen, the magical things that might make life better. Like, what if we found, like, he'll talk about, like, if we found a lamp and a genie came out, this is what we'd wish for. Or sometimes he's like, what if Mr. Beast moved in next door and we became best friends and he gave us 7 cars, and it's just all these things. And he's always thinking and plotting and planning for ways to get all the wishes, for ways to become the person that he wants to be, without actually doing any work. Like that's a thing that I think we all do it, whether we do it literally like me and Micaiah, or we do it a little more like covertly, like, adults probably do. So most of us, I think, aren't Jafar. Like, we're not the bad guy. We don't have ill intent. We're just more like Aladdin. We're just a little selfish. I think that's where we are, most of us. And we're obsessed with getting our way on someone else's effort. One of the most nonsense things I say, don't take me seriously, guys, but I always say, like, I don't want a dog. I want a friend with a dog, because I want to hang out with a puppy and I want to play with it, and then I want to give it back and then go home to a house with no dog hair. Same with, like, I don't want another baby. I just want to hold your baby. I don't want a boat. I just want a friend to take me out on a boat every now and then, I could never deal with all that responsibility, way too much. I remember when I was in Florida. So I moved to Florida when I was 9, and my brother was, when we were teenagers, he was working at this restaurant. It was like a rib kind of barbecue place, but what you go for, the OGs know, you go for the cheese fries. It's so good, waffle fries and all the cheeses and the bacon, and it's served with this spicy ranch, you guys, and it's house-made, and it's so delicious, and the white girl in me just, this ranch is so good. And one day I found out that my brother knew the recipe, like he was making the ranch, and I was like, brother, this is it. This is the thing I need. And I asked for ranch for Christmas. I did an accent just then. I blame Disney for that. I've never even been to England. So I asked for ranch for Christmas, and my brother said, I don't think I can do that. I can only make it in a 5-gallon quantity. And I was like, sir, there is no problem here. Give me 5 gallons of spicy ranch for Christmas. Or I could do the math. I'm sure we could figure it out. I didn't get ranch for Christmas. We had to get over it. We're friends again, but it took some time. But we're always trying to, like, maximize, like, what can I get, right? Isn't that such a human thing to do? Like, you can get me the ranch, so you better just get it for me. I'll even call it a Christmas present. Don't spend a dime. But let's get back to it. So the problem was Aladdin was so very focused on what he could get out of the genie that he missed the value of the friendship with the genie. So, guys, if you've seen the movie, it is my opinion, and it's probably right, he is the best character in the movie. He's voiced by Robin Williams. He's incredible. He's hilarious, and he's just a larger-than-life personality. And he's hilarious, but he's also kind, and he is sweet, and he gives good advice. But he's often just looked at like a genie, and he's so much more than just a wish-granting machine. But Aladdin was so distracted by the power that he overlooked the person that the genie was. And so today, I don't know if you guys are sleuths, but we probably guessed it. We're going to talk about Genie Jesus today. Do we have a Genie Jesus in our life, or do we have the real Jesus? So there are a few ways that I think we all make the mistake of treating Jesus like a genie. We're going to go over a couple of them today. Number one, like, we just expect him to be there to answer our prayers. He meets our needs and he changes our circumstances, but the true value of Jesus is the relationship with him. He's not Genie Jesus. He is King Jesus, right? And of course, this is the most obvious one. Grant my wishes, Jesus, because I gave you my heart, and now I have my requests. So one of the most common phone calls that we get here at Momentum Church, you answer the phone, hi, Momentum Church, how can we help you today? And the first thing we'll hear very often is, hey, do you pay people's bills? And we're not set up to do that. Like, we're brand new, and we're not able to do that. And when we say that, we say, no, we're so sorry, we're not able to do that. And what we hear is usually just click. So they wanted a wish granted, and when we weren't able to grant that wish, our use plummets down to 0. And of course, listen, hear my heart. It's not wrong to reach out. It is not wrong to reach out for help, but there is so much more than that God provides. So Matthew 15:8 says, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. And how many times do we do that? How many times do we honor God with our lips, or we just ask for something and our hearts aren't even for him? Our hearts aren't even postured toward him. So number 2, we treat Jesus like a genie when our connection to him is only as deep as our lips but falls short of our heart. That kind of leads right into that one. Listen, just because you talk about him doesn't mean you're in relationship with him. So is your relationship with Christ as extensive as your vocabulary or as complete as your soul? Genie Jesus has your requests but not your heart. God isn't interested in your prayers if they aren't spoken in the context of relationships. How many of you have had a relationship where someone asked a little more than you felt like the relationship allowed for? Like, did you ever have a new friend? I saw a hand, like, yes, girl. Have you ever had a new friend and they're like, hey, new friend, it was so nice getting to know you. Could you drive me to the airport? It's like, girl, no, I cannot drive you to the airport. I don't know you like that. That's spouse work. That's best friend work. And it's hard sometimes because people will like go beyond what your relationship allows for. I was thinking about it this morning and I realized I have a sock friend. I have a friend who, and don't worry, I'm not going to make any of you be my sock friend. I've known this girl 20 years. So come 2044, I might ask you for help, but it's not anytime soon. So don't worry. But I have a friend that I have known since I was 11, and she is the person. Guys, I hate laundry. I'm going to just be honest. There's always more. I'm wearing laundry right now as I make, it's a problem. But the thing that's the worst is the sorting of the socks. There's so many little feet. There's so many big feet. There's just so many socks. And so I will reasonably just ignore them for a very long time until it gets to be a problem. And then I have a friend that I can call and say, Becky, it's sock time. Please come over. I'll make you food. Do the socks. I'm begging you. And that is true friendship. If you have a sock friend, do not let them go. Listen to me, guys. You gotta. So someone you don't know asking for something versus someone you are in relationship with, the deeper the relationship, the more likely a response. See, context of relationship is relevant. So I have 3 sons. One's on the front row. He's so cute. Yay. I have 3 sons, and I also have a guest bedroom in my house. So if there were a day where I had my 3 sons in one room and I had a guest, like, my husband's cousin's brother's buddy, he's just going through town and needs a place to crash for the night. If I have my kids over here and this rando over here, and I'm standing in the middle and I hear, I wet the bed. If it comes from over here, I'm going to walk toward it. If it comes from over here, it's going to be a big problem, and I'm going to be like, hey, hun, your guy needs your help. I'm not going in there. The context of the relationship, it doesn't matter what the thing is. If it's my kids, I'm running to them. And if it's some guy I don't know, I'm not going that way. So there's very different levels. There are different levels. And I want to ask, are we asking for God to grant our wishes when we're merely a visitor staying the night? Or are we calling him up and asking him to prove his usefulness to us when we're doing nothing more than just couch surfing? How are we treating our God? Are we rolling in and rolling out, eating his food, and just peacing out? Or are we making God the king of our life? So, the third way we can treat Jesus like a genie is when we turn to other things, when he doesn't operate on our timetable. So in the Bible, this happens sometimes here at Momentum. I love it. Right now, the kids are learning about the Israelites being freed from the Egyptians in the Bible. And we're going to learn about that a little bit too. In the Bible, there were the Israelites. They were God's chosen people. We call them God's favorites. I do. Nobody else does. And there was a long time where they were kept as slaves in Egypt. And the Egyptians were not treating them right, and they were captives. But God delivered them from their captors in a series of undeniably miraculous events. And they were being chased by an enemy, and they came up to a sea, and God parted that sea so they could walk through on dry land, and they were able to escape their enemies that way. And then they're in the wilderness, and nobody knows the way. Nobody charged their phones. There's no GPS. So God sends a pillar of light, a pillar of fire, and it guides them through the wilderness to where they need to go. God is undeniable to these people. He proved himself over and over again, but then he made them wait, and that That was where the problem started. The leader of the Israelites, named Moses, went to talk with God. And it was a very important journey he had to make. He had to separate from the people, and he was conferring with God, and he was getting information that the Israelites needed. But while he was gone, they started saying, it's taking too long. They got antsy, they got anxious, they got afraid, and they did not trust the waiting process. So they did what any normal person would do. They piled all their gold together in a bowl, they melted it down, and they made a golden calf, and they said, this is our God, he will save us. Just the worst decision you could possibly make. Moses is out there getting everything they need, and they said, we're gonna just make a God for ourselves because that one doesn't seem to be showing up, and we're tired of waiting. So they worshiped a golden calf. It did not turn out well for them, you guys. But see, we read that, and I always have a problem reading about the Israelites because I just watch them make these same mistakes over and over again. I'm like, God rescued you, and then you forgot about him. God did something amazing, but then he made you wait, and then you forgot about him. God provided miraculous food, and then you're not happy with it. How are you like this? And I'll be reading a story, and I'll watch what the Israelites did over the course of 100 years and think, you guys are so foolish. And then I look at my own life and I realize I did all those things, but in the course of like my 20s. So you got to have some grace for those poor Israelites. But it's when you look at God not as God, but as something else. Look at God not as the most high, holy God, but more as like your wish granter. So I want to tell you a verse. This is important. Isaiah 40:31. But they who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not be weary, and they will walk and not faint. That is what it's like to serve a God, even if you are waiting. And you can look at the word wait two different ways. You can be waiting for someone or waiting on someone, waiting for someone to show up in a new way or even show up at all. Or you could also just be like a server at a restaurant, waiting on someone. We wait on God. We serve him. And both of those things require time and they require patience. And those are things that you're not just born. We're born selfish. You learn patience and you learn the art of waiting for God and waiting on God. So us experiencing the miracles of God is often tied to us waiting on him. He's not a genie that we can just summon by rubbing a lamp. He is not magic in a bottle to deliver on our whims. He's the eternal God, and his timetable is optimal. It is not optional. It is optimal. There have been so many times I've wanted just something like, God, please, please, please. And if you really look back on your prayer life, how often are your prayers whims? And I'm so glad we serve a God that is nothing like the way I think. He has a plan, and he has something greater for us always. And so often our plans are just like, oh, I have an idea. Let's pray for that. And it's not what God has for us. So it's just be glad that we serve a God who doesn't think like we do. He thinks so much better. I think back to us planning this church. Momentum Church it came after we could call years of wilderness. There were years where life was tough and we were going through a lot. And then there were more years after that where we were just waiting. And I got to tell you guys, the waiting is hard. Like Pastor Daniel, he's a go-getter. He's like a hit the ground running type of guy. And I'm like, let's do this thing. I'm always ready for the next thing. But we had 2 years of just waiting. And then even in a small way, it got pushed back even more. We were meant to, or our original human plan was to launch Momentum Church in September of 2023. And it got pushed back, and it was January 2024. And I am so very happy that that's what happened, because we have seen miracles, and it's been absolutely incredible. And it was to God's will and God's purpose. And think of how many people who have given their lives to Christ since starting this church. It's absolutely amazing. And the wait is 100% worth it. Number 4, we will treat Jesus like a genie when he is a shortcut to an outcome. James chapter 4, verses 2 and 3. Oh, this one's hard to read, guys. We're going to get through it together, okay? Are you ready? You want what you don't have, so you scheme and kill to get it. You are jealous of what others have, but you can't get it, so you fight and wage war to take it away from them. Yet, you don't have what you want because you don't ask God for it. And even when you ask, you don't get it because your motives are all wrong. You want only what will give you pleasure. That's a hard one. Sometimes the Bible's so mean, y'all. Listen, God is aware of our motivations. He is aware, and we're not going to trick him. We can fool everybody else in the room into thinking we're perfect, we're wonderful, and our motivations are beautiful and treasured, but God knows. And he is not a shortcut to be taken. He is a king to be petitioned. And sometimes I think about maybe we needed to wait. Maybe our hearts were not ready. And I'm so glad for the wait because I think we needed it. And I'm just glad that with this group of people is because God's told us, hold up and wait. Number 5, this is the last way we'll go over talking about treating Jesus like a genie. It's when we demand our will without being submitted to his will. So this one's heavy, guys. Have you ever been angry with God or even walked away from God for a time because he didn't deliver what you felt he owed you? So many people walk away from God because he didn't appear to answer their requests in the manner that they had expected. And honestly, that's a hard one. Some people will walk away from God and you'll look at it and that's a small reason, but sometimes the reasons are they're big. I lost a loved one. And now I'm asking myself the question, why didn't you prevent that, God? Or even the harder one, God, did you do that? Did you make that happen? It's hard when you have to ask these questions to yourself. And it's hard when you pour your life into a job and then they drop you. These things can make you question everything. But listen, God never promised that we won't go through the hard things. He never promised that he'll shield his kids from everything that this world can throw at them. But he's here for us. He is genuinely here for us. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you guys. 5 years ago, Texas wasn't the plan for the Gregory family. That's not what we were going to do. That's not where our life was aiming. But some things happened, and they were hard things, and they were powerful and hurtful and rough things. But as we went through them, God was there in the middle of all of it. I think about that worship song we sang today. It was such a good song. God's going to get us through it. God's going to get us to it. And something's got to break. And I was sitting there, and I don't know if you are sitting there watching and worshiping with me today and thinking about all the situations that need to break, but I'm just sitting there thinking, I've got to break. Sometimes the thing that's got to break is our own will and our own view of Jesus and how we think of him as our genie, and we think of him as the one, God fixed the world around me. And what God's really going to do is he's going to fix you, and he's going to make you a new creation, and then you're going to be equipped to handle things. If God fixed all my situations the way that I had prayed for them on my whims, I would never have met a single person in this room aside from that front row right there. And I am so glad God answered my prayers in a way that was surprising and was different than what I was praying for. I am thankful for that. So, and listen, it's promised. He will never leave us. He will never forsake us. Jesus himself, the Son of God himself, prayed to God and found his prayers answered in a way that I don't think that we could call ideal. He was on his way to be beaten and killed for our sins, for you and for me and for the world. And he prayed to his Father, Father, if you are willing, please take this cup of suffering away from me. Yet I want your will to be done and not mine. We don't need to pray God's will away. We need to pray our will to line up with God's will. And then we're praying for God's will to be done in our lives. Listen, we don't submit our desires to genies in bottles, but we do submit our wills to the King on the throne. Your submission to the will of God determines where he rests in your life. I'm going to ask again, does God tuck you in every night, or are you just spending the night on the couch? Are you a part of his family, or are you just kind of visiting because you're passing through? God wants to be so much more than the person you visit when you're in town. So these are some of the ways that we can treat Jesus like a genie, but we have to learn how to approach him as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. This is an important verse. Let's go to Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. And someone once reminded me when I was having a hard time, they said, this is not just an encouragement, this is actually a command. Don't be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Listen, you're allowed to ask for things. You're allowed to have feelings. You're allowed to need things from your Heavenly Father. My kids need things all the time. The thing is, we're not to be demanding. We're not to be anxious. My kids don't need to come to me fearful to ask me for things. They come in confidence because I am their mother, but they come to me in humility as a child who is looking up to a person that takes care of them. We turn Jesus also into a genie when we're anxious, when we're hurried, when we're worried, when we're fearful. Anxiety will put the focus on the need instead of on the solution. Anxiety fills us with an urgency that erodes trust. We have to trust in God. And when we get anxious, we are in the flesh and not in his spirit. The Bible says to be still and know that he is God. He's not our genie. Genie has power, but not authority. It has magic, but not the miraculous. 3 wishes, but not omnipotence. We don't serve a genie Jesus. We serve the eternal God, King Jesus. We don't rub a lamp. We actually pray. And sometimes our prayers can be indistinguishable from a lamp rub, honestly. But there is a posture that we need to maintain when we pray. So supplication, that means to ask or beg earnestly and humbly. Do you seek an answer to your needs through humility or entitlement? So are you asking like the subject of a king, or are you asking like a spoiled child? There's a big difference between an entitled child and a grateful child. It's monumental. So with thanksgiving means with gratitude. Gratitude is the prerequisite for answered prayers. And listen, I make breakfast, lunch, and dinner for my kids, and I do it every single day, and I'm happy to do it, and I will do it as long as they need me to, and then I'll keep doing it as long as they'll let me, because I love it. It's how I show them love. But I can tell you, as the person who is granting wishes, as the person who is providing for little people, the difference between thanks, Mom, you're the best, and I thought I asked for ketchup. Unbelievable, an indescribable amount of like the air in the room changes depending on that. And I've got a little boy in the room right now who is so good at gratitude, and he might be a schmooze, but I don't care because I'm soaking it up. But he'll say like, "Thank you, amazing mommy," and it's just, I know, it's the best. I didn't even teach him to do that. Oh, it's so good. But the difference between "thank you, amazing mommy" and "I thought I asked for ketchup," the difference is ice cream, right? Like he's getting ice cream on one of those days, but they wouldn't get it on the other. And that's not why we're grateful. But God, thinking of God as a parent, he just pours out his blessings on his kids. And he deserves our gratitude. Genuinely, he deserves it. So here's my question. Do you want to know if you're praying to a genie Jesus? Ask yourself when the last time you thanked God was. We don't thank genies because we're entitled to their response, and that's not Jesus. Yeah. Jesus is not our genie. I want to tell you a quick story. It's an amazing story from the Bible in Luke chapter 17, starting in verse 11. As Jesus continued on toward Jerusalem, he reached the border between Galilee and Samaria. Now, I want to remind you, people who love Jesus are not perfect, and a lot of the followers of Jesus had issues with the Samaritans. They were not a loved people. So oftentimes Jesus interacted with Samaritans and he got scolded for it. And then he told stories about Samaritans doing good things and people were not ready for it. And I love the way Jesus always shook things up, always shook up the religious people. So verse 12, as he entered a village there, 10 men with leprosy stood at a distance crying out, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." He looked at them and said, "Go, show yourselves to the priest." And as they went, they were cleansed of their leprosy. One of them, when he saw that he was healed, came back to Jesus shouting, "Praise God." And he fell to the ground at Jesus' feet, thanking him for what he had done. This man was a Samaritan. This man was a man who wasn't worth Jesus' time, according to the people that Jesus hung out with a lot. Jesus asked, I love the way he says it, Didn't I heal 10 men? He knows. He asked it like a parent. Didn't I say? Weren't you listening? Didn't I heal 10 men? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give glory to God except this foreigner? And Jesus said to the man, stand up and go. Your faith has healed you. Gratitude took one man from having a wish granted, and it gave him a personal encounter with Jesus. Jesus, I guess, was kind of a genie for those other 9 people. I guess that happens every now and then, but that's not the goal. One man went back, and his gratitude got him eye contact with the creator of heaven and earth, got him a word from the creator of the universe. Gratitude takes Jesus out of the lamp and puts him on the throne. Jesus was a genie for 9 lepers that day, but he became the king of heaven and earth for one. I don't think a person goes, a lot of times a good thing will happen, a miracle will happen. I've seen miracles happen and people walk away and they're happy and excited and they go back to life as it was before. But an encounter with Jesus is not something you walk away from and you walk away the same. I don't know what happened to the 9 lepers that didn't say thank you. I don't know what happened, but I know that one went back and got a personal encounter with Jesus. And I think that life was probably forever changed. The difference was gratitude. Gratitude kills our entitlement and elevates his faithfulness. So ask yourself this question. Does Jesus have my wish list, or does he have my heart? Do I demand my will, or am I submitted to his will? Am I content to wait on him? Maybe you have served a genie Jesus your whole life. Maybe you've only known him as someone that meets your needs instead of changes your desires. And maybe you're ready for the real Jesus today. Can you guys do me something? Just bow your heads for me for a minute. Just everybody in the room.